friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy and I am the host of the show. And today you guys are on episode 205, Being Real About Online Safety. So, couple housekeeping rules for today. Your girl's eyes are literally so dry and just acting real weird. So sorry, I know glasses aren't always the fan favorite when it comes to video. Audio peeps probably don't give a shit, can't even know what I'm talking about. But I know that I've been trying to get rid of the glare, but it's just not happening. And my eyes need a break, you know? I'm sure all my contact girlies get me, or boys get me. It's just a little too dry. Need to switch it up right now. So apologies for the glare. It is what it is. C'est la vie. And also could not put my headphones on because, you know, glasses, headband, everything that's going on here. If you can't see, I've got a Christmas mistletoe going on here. So headphones just seem like too much, but we're not listening to anything today at all. I'm going to go through my experience of the online safety that I experienced, or the lack of safety that I had this year with my online hack. So I'll go through my personal experience, and then I want to share 3 different stories for you guys, especially parents out there. I think, especially coming into the holiday season, this is going to post 5 days before Christmas. I think it's super important that we talk about the online space for young kids and the safety measures that aren't in place, that I think a lot of people, as usual, expect is there, but it's just not. So we're going to talk about 3 stories with very popular apps and lawsuits that are coming in, and what other parents are experiencing out there, so that you yourself can be more informed and dive deeper into these stories yourself. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you, if you are listening on YouTube or Rumble, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you can also turn on notifications and leave me a review if you're feeling so kind in the Christmas spirit. It helps so much, guys. Even if you just go throw a star, you don't even have to put words, hit enter, but you do have to be listening to the show on the platforms to be able to do that. So make sure you're listening to do that. Don't just go and do that. It's got to be real, legit. And if you want to find me on social media for the rest of season 8, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at the Be Real Babe. And there's going to be some big changes coming in season 9 where it comes to different platforms that I'm going to be on. But for now, that's where I am if you want to find me. And as always, if you're looking to come on the show, let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram or TikTok. I would love to have you on the show. I'm booking into season 9 now, so make sure you get at me because this spring season is already starting to fill up. So let me know. I'd love to have you on the show. Okay, so my personal experience. Oh gosh, okay. So January 11th is when I had my personal hack, and I can't even explain what it truly felt like, because I've just never felt something like that before. It's just, you feel like you're completely out of control, but in the safety of your own home, and you're losing something that's not real, but is real and very real at the same time, and definitely had repercussions in my life, and has also been a nightmare for the last fucking year, because I had that email that got hacked. I had that email, gosh, for 15 years probably plus. So any job that I ever submitted to, any loan, anything personal, family, business wise, like everything went through that email. And outside of that, losing my OneDrive with all my photos over the last 12 years, can get that back. Losing all my social media pages, which I had built for 10 plus years, which again, in the grand scheme of things and at the end of it, didn't matter, but it did in the moment. especially just a couple weeks after getting engaged and wanting to like celebrate and start, looking at wedding stuff. It was just all of a sudden I was locked out of every single account that I have across the board, right? So for my experience, I know some people just lose accounts or they lose them for community guidelines or someone hacks just the one or two. Unfortunately for myself, it was absolutely everything. Anything that was hooked, like I said, to that one email that I made 15 years ago, all my social media accounts, all my financial accounts, everything went through that fucking email. And so the ones that got me did it through an email where it said that someone was trying to hack into my Facebook account. So I'm lying in bed that night, and of course Grant was gone. Always shit always happens when he's gone, which is probably better because I just was freaking out. And yeah, I got that email and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I looked, and I looked at the bottom. It had the address on it. It looked legit, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not gonna just take it as it is. I'm gonna go to the app." So then when I logged into the app, it also told me that someone was trying to break into my account. So I was like, "Oh, okay, shoot, I better do this then." And that's where I made the mistake. I went through the email link to reset my password versus just doing it through the app. And through that link, that's where I believe, because that's when everything started to happen. It said that I got a flag on Instagram saying that my business account had been broken from my Facebook. And I was like, what the fuck? That's weird. And then I went to go log into Facebook and I couldn't get in. And I immediately knew what was going on. I tried so hard. Like I fought so hard, tried to do it. And this was like, I don't know, 8 o'clock I don't even remember, like Tuesday night or for Thursday night. I don't remember what day the 11th was. And it just barrel rolled from there. It just spiraled into this insanity I've never seen in my life digitally. And it felt so invasive, and there's just nothing I could do. I didn't know to what level was I being hacked. Like, was it just through my email? Was it my phone? Was it going to go to my work laptop? Like what, I don't know. I'm not a tech person. I don't know how crazy, and there's lots of smart people out there that can do crazy stuff. And not once did I think like I was a target for any specific reason, other than just like people just going through. And I've had my Facebook again for like 12 years. So that account had a decent amount of people on it that trusted me over the years, and they made a lot of money off of it. So I luckily right away went to the banks and made sure to shut my account down for that email address. Like I shut that email address down. So I thought that I was safe there. So they didn't get any money from me there. It was just like, okay, they're stealing your online identity. They were sending out emails from mine for job opportunities, sales, like anything to get people to just click a link to make an account. And I was watching it happen because for some reason or another, I could never get the authenticator on my on that email. It just never worked. Like I signed up and it would never, I don't know what the fuck. Anyway, so I'm assuming they just couldn't get me kicked out. Like I could still see what they were doing. And so I was just sitting there refreshing my email, and I was watching them send all these spam. And then I'm watching them open all these accounts trying to see if like to reset an email if I had an account, to see if anything was attached where if there's money or anywhere that had any information that they could take money from me. They took over like my Optimum card. They took over like things like that. They took over my fucking Spotify, which pissed me off because I've been building music lists for years. And like, if you guys know me, you always know I always have music for like, one day when I do a cardio thing, which I know I'm the biggest fucking liar about, but whatever, it's still there. It still got taken away from me. And again, all my social media was linked. Luckily, my Instagram was on a different email, so they weren't able to get that, but they got all of my business pages, my paddleboard page, my photography page, the podcast page, things that I had built, which dial ahead to this summer was a huge effect on our business, because Facebook Marketplace, even though it's technically not what you're supposed to be doing, it's still where a lot of people would come to rent the paddleboards. That's where we got a lot of traffic. And so I was locked out of all those accounts. I couldn't get back in after spending all this time. So it very much affected. And then on top of it, I couldn't post very much or do much in any groups or anything like that even allowed that, because I made a second Facebook, obviously, after I realized that one was lost. And luckily, I went and was able to save a lot of pictures that were public, but I had a lot of pictures that were private, and I couldn't get those. I lost friends that had passed away. Being friends with them and going able to go back and see their stuff, from time to time, can't do that anymore. Um, yeah, so it's just like all of the. Sorry, I lost where I was because I was actually really upset about losing the Facebook. It's like the memories, the friends that you've made. Like, so after I came to the realization, like, girl, you're not getting it back. I opened another one, and then, of course, something happened and community guidelines, and it shut that one down. So I was like, okay, I'm fucking done. Um, so I gave up on Facebook for quite a long time. I'd say like probably 6 months, and then starting to talk about like wedding planning and just getting an ideas about wedding stuff. It made it very hard for me not to find stuff in the area, so I had to join Facebook again. So luckily my third one is still up, but I'm just not like going. My second one, I was going around trying to rebuild it, and then after some, I have no idea what even happened in the community guidelines, like no idea whatsoever. So because of that, I had hooked it up to my old Instagram, hoping that that would like validate things and secure things across all. But then once the community guidelines happened on my second Facebook account, it took down my original Instagram, which I've lost still like so many people from that. Another thing that was happening too, and I want people to be aware, is like when people get their Facebook hacked, like they can't do anything about it. There's no one you can talk to. And mine was being used to sell Taylor Swift tickets. And then I would get messages from people after who found my new account getting upset with me because they got scammed on Taylor Swift tickets from my hacked account. And I'm going through it. And I've even gone through everything that happened. But and although I was sympathizing, like what I posted, I got a new account. I tried to tell people, like, I'm not really sure what more I could do. Like, when you're blacked out online and you lose everything, and then you got to build from scratch, you can't just go like, oh, add everyone that you just had, and like they're going into groups, and like I don't. I just thought it was really in poor taste when someone's going through it and literally lost everything and had to rebuild everything. And I'm talking like everything. So another thing that happened that where it financially hit me is they got into my Simple account where my checking information is. So that's a whole fucking nightmare, because even though I'd called them to let them know, I guess there was a transaction already in process. So the minute that my and this was just a couple days, this happened before payday, and I didn't even think of it because I'm literally in the middle of trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. My paycheck hit, and even though we got rid of the email, so no email transfers or through that debit card, it's still that they bought $2,000 worth of crypto through Simple and got that money. And luckily, because I'd done all the right things, I eventually got my money back, but it took me over a month of harassing the bank to get it back. Super grateful that it worked, but like I did everything I could as an individual, and I acted fucking quick. Like I was on it, you guys. Like I um I had no idea what to fucking do. But I definitely busted my ass off and just started calling places, and just starting writing down a list of everywhere that I needed to call that was going to be affected by this, because once they get like in that email, I would have emailed like resumes and anything that needed, anything for like legal purposes through my divorce, like anything that they wanted to find about me that would have been sent in the email, even to private people, they were able to find. So I had no idea what level this was going to. So I'm calling CRA, I'm calling the fraud line, I'm calling the cops. Like, what the fuck do I do? And it was just so isolating, you guys. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, nobody can do anything for you. And you just don't want to touch your phone or look at anything because you don't know what the extent is, and you don't know, you can't just like go to a place and it's like, oh, you've been hacked, here's all the things you need to do. Like, that doesn't happen. It's actually kind of fucking crazy. And so I just wrote down what I did so that I knew what I had to do, and I had to recreate all these new passwords and these new emails, and like, what do I do to protect myself going forward? There wasn't really much information out there. So it definitely was a rude awakening in so many different ways, not just in the way we operate day to day on a digital level with our finances and our personal information, but to the connections that we make online and social media, and how that is its own little world. And it was very eye-opening. Then I also, which I know was an absolute scam, but they also emailed me in the same email because they could see that I still had access to that email. and they're trying to extort me, saying that they had seen me being on porn sites and they have video evidence of me. They've been watching me for a while and they have video evidence of me essentially like jerking off to porn. And they'll send that to all my email friends, which is just super interesting because, like, research the girl you're talking about. There ain't no way I'm looking at porn. Like, the last time I think I've seen porn outside of like maybe watching like videos talking about it that might have like, I doubt a clip, but like alluding to it, that's probably as spicy as it gets here. Sorry, I just prefer to have my sex in real life. No shade to anybody else. But it was probably when I was like like late teens, early 20s, and like maybe it was, there was a weird time where people would put that on in the background at parties. I don't know, boys are weird. That's probably the last time because it's just not something I'm interested in. So I knew it was a lie, but it was still like, I could imagine a lot of people falling for that and then sending money and da 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 da, right? So they really threw everything at the book, at me. I fought them quite a bit with LinkedIn because they kept trying to reset my password, but there was just like a backup thing on there that I had that kept saying like, no, this isn't me, don't let it reset. But then as I was sleeping, I couldn't fight it, and they took that over. So, um, yeah, and I don't want to go too much into it because I do want to talk about these other stories, and I don't want it to be a crazy long episode, especially because everyone's going through their holiday season right now, you know. But you know, it was really upsetting too because to this day, if someone hasn't updated or no, they could send stuff to my old email. Like, I accidentally had a big chunk of money sent to that one, and luckily that email must have been shut down. From whatever, from, I guess it would have been Microsoft, I'm assuming, because all the emails, it probably did get shut down because I got locked out of it at some point. Didn't accept it, so luckily the money didn't go through. But like, I've had presents sent to that, I've had, you know, and then it's linked to like my original YouTube page for the podcast, so that's why I made a new YouTube. Please go follow it, Be Real Babe. All of the things that I had done for the podcast were linked to it too. So luckily, I was able to act on the things that I cared about right away, like getting the podcast, at least platform back, making sure, you know, but I had to make a new Spotify, I had to make a new YouTube. Luckily, Rumble was connected to something else. I had to make a new Facebook. Then that one got, you know what I mean? So it is very disheartening. And so I think, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, is going forward in season 9, I think I'm going to reduce the amount of platforms that I am and just be on certain ones and really secure it. And also just build one outside of all of these that would be my own website where, you know, you can watch the show for free. And I don't have to worry about platform censoring me or people breaking into that and then losing all of those things, because that was really scary. And one other thing too is just, you know, so many people think it can't happen to them, and they're just getting sneakier. And you know, I've seen so many different ways that they were taking advantage of people. They made thousands on my account, I imagine, because I alone heard from 4 people that sent a pretty significant amount of money to this account for Taylor Swift tickets. And again, which is kind of ironic because if you know me, you know how I feel about her. So found it super interesting. Obviously, these were people that didn't know me or just didn't really think about it, which is totally fair. We all have our times where we have to learn about online safety. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes we lose money, sometimes we lose our entire identity, but it can happen to you. And so I am definitely in no way, shape, or form a professional or know what the fuck you should be doing for your own personal life. But here's some things that I have done, just based off of what happened to me and what I thought could be prevention of it happening again in the future, or if it does happen, where it can mitigate some issues. So I definitely recommend going and looking for experts in this area. There's tons out there about online security and what you should do, but just for myself and just for thoughts for people that are out there is definitely keep your social media email and your personal life email, like for your work or for any business stuff, keep that separate. I know a lot of us, especially us millennials, are still going on with our, like, you know, I think I had brandybabe500 at hotmail.com for like ever until I was like, oh, I should be an adult. And then I got married and got a last name, you know. So I know a lot of us millennials probably have all of our social medias and all that tied to one email that we've had for a generation. And so the thought of changing that over is exhausting. I totally get it. But I would just challenge you to think, like, if that gets broken into, and I'm talking like they get a hold of that email, what is that all linked to and what are you going to lose? Because I lost a fucking lot, you guys. So I'm not saying change all of that. I'm just saying maybe don't keep your financial stuff, like your online banking, anything to do with your trading, your investments, anything to do with your just personal stuff, try to keep it separate. So I made a new one that's like for the podcast and like kind of like online social media, anything to do with like point accounts I put in there. And then for my personal one that I changed to a completely different one, I have for like the doctors or like anything that I'm doing with my health or work or any of those things. So my if someone does try to break in again through a social media type platform, it's going to be having access to those type of things, which again would really suck to lose, but then I won't have to deal with the whole financial and like to the point where I changed all my information and all my banking and they missed one of my accounts updating. So they locked me out of my bank accounts one day and I went to go buy lunch and I couldn't because it said that I just couldn't. And so I had to go to the bank to find out that they locked me out of my accounts because they realized I didn't update one account number and it was at risk like 8 months later. Um, so like it's something that has to this day, it's almost going to be a year since it happened. It's still haunting me to this day. I still have so many restrictions because I'm new and I have my name's now been flagged because of behavior on the hacked account is linked to my name and my it's just it's super frustrating. So I just highly suggest, doing things that you can. I'm not saying what's good or bad. I know a lot of people don't like the authenticator. I didn't either. But now it's kind of hard, it's kind of like being cattled into it because it is awful having all that stuff happen to you. So I just do the one authenticator and it goes through the same as the Microsoft one and it's hooked up to my personal email, just so that if anybody was to hack that, it's like I don't want my social media one to go, but at the same time, really trying to protect it. And then also with your passwords being a little bit more creative, I was told by a tech friend to write a sentence and say, put your favorite number in there. So let's just say you love cats. You can say, I love cats and exclamation and then your favorite number is 3, so you could go I 3 love 3 cats 3 exclamation. So then you hit all the things and it's like a sentence and your favorite number, so something that's easy to remember, right? I have my own ways of doing things, but I thought that was such a clever one, as well. And so yeah, there's definitely lots of tips and tricks out there and I think it's something that we don't think of, and they're getting sneakier, they're getting smarter with AI and all that stuff that we're going to talk about next. I just think it's one way that we can be preventative. Don't be like me. I understand everything's up in the cloud in OneDrive. That can get hacked, y'all. Download that shit. Like, we've got some downtime at the end of the year. I'd say a really good thing on a day off would be just try to download your photos onto an outside source because, like myself, I have some, but majority of it is like, oh, it's in the cloud. Oh, it's in OneDrive. Well, what happens when that OneDrive gets taken away? All those memories are gone and I can't get them back. Again, there is no one to talk to. You can't just call Meta. You can't just call Microsoft. No one fucking cares. They don't care. You're just going to make new accounts, buy new things. It's just an inconvenience for you. What's it to them? They still make their money. They're still going to be busy. So there's ways that we can, something I would like to dive into, maybe have some more experts, not even experts, just people that know way more than me. I'm just speaking on my experience because it sucked, you guys. And what the most unfortunate part is that, January is already kind of like a lame month, but I got to have an exciting January because I just got engaged Christmas Day. And I felt like it took me 3 or 4 months to even like come back from having anxiety. It's like anytime I got an email, my stomach, I know we all joke about getting emails and like being triggered like it's the war, but when something like that happens, it does feel like it's like, oh my God, what are they taking now? Did they get back? Have they logged into my phone? Are they taking over my accounts? Like I would log into my debit and credit card every single day just to make sure like I didn't miss something and someone stole stuff. Like it was not good on my mental health. I was not doing great the beginning of 2024 with all this, and like trying to, and I don't think I ever let the podcast like slip through all that, so it's like all a bunch of stuff I had to start from scratch. Like I had all these templates, I had everything, and because that was taken away, I had to like mid-season rebuild everything while still posting the show. It was fucking insane. Anyways, whatever. So that was me. That's my story. I didn't want to go this long on it, but I definitely do feel like I want to talk more about this in the coming days. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like a lot of people have time off here. It's that time to get ready for the new year, kind of decompress for the last year. And so, if you are having days off and you're not using your computer, like literally just go and upload them and put it to the side, like at least start with that. So if you do get hacked, you have your memories still, because that one was a really hard pill to swallow. Every time I go back to like share a picture or relook at a memory, it's not there anymore, and I fucking absolutely hate that. But anyways, it's not just our personal lives, it's also kids are getting pretty much the shortest end of the stick when it comes to online apps and things like that, and they're getting hurt at a level that I don't think people have any idea. And I'm saying that because I also didn't have any idea. And I just really, really, really want to shout out to Scrolling to Death, Nikki Reisberg. I'm so sorry if I butchered her name. That's French immersion Canadian. I'm so sorry. But she's on Instagram. She's on YouTube. Scrolling to Death is her page and her podcast. She has new episodes Monday and Thursday, and she's just on the same platforms as me, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And she does a lot of social media alerts in her reel. So I don't know as much about her story because I literally stumbled on her like a couple weeks ago, and I've just been blown away by the work that she's done and what she's trying to do. I think she's amazing. And she's the reason why I know that. So she deep dives and she interviews these parents, and she's in there doing things and making changes down in the States. Definitely something I absolutely admire. And so I do want to dive deeper into her story, but it sounds like from a high level that she was in social media for, a decade. And then when she had kids, she started seeing things differently. And, we all have our certain awakening when it comes to things. She obviously had hers when it came to online safety. And now she is avidly out there trying to make sure that parents have informed consent about what's going on the online space, that most kids, like, this wasn't a worry, when we were growing up. Like, yeah, you had to be worried about what kids were doing in their bedroom, but if they were like by themselves, like, they didn't have access to a whole bunch of stuff, right? I don't know that we've really understood the access that kids have. And the shitty thing for me is that I don't have kids, so that's not a conversation that's happening in my home. So I really, really had no fucking idea how bad this is. But then if I think, yeah, well, duh, dumbass, like, how bad it is for adults. And I guess I've said this, but not really. Like, I think we know this shit, but we don't know this shit until something smacks us in the face, or we see a reel by Nikki that's just like, what the fuck did she just say? Did she just say that an AI bot tried to convince a child to their parents? That's a thing. And then, as one does, we fell down the rabbit hole. So if I just hold my face like this and my glasses like this and I don't move, the glare's not as bad. So this is where this kind of all came by. I didn't, not that I didn't think that's real. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just needed to, being me, needed to know a little bit more. And then again, fell down a couple of her episodes where these stories got brought to my attention. So please, please, please go to her podcast and watch, support her. She's doing things, and we need to support her in doing these things. And more parents definitely need to know this. And why I wanted to talk about it today and launch it just before Christmas, for one, it's just been something I've been heavily looking into the last couple weeks. But two, it's that time of year where kids are getting more electronics. They're getting more access to these games, these platforms more than ever, especially with the world trying to keep up with the Joneses. And, it's not like it used to be when we used just to play video games with our friends in our rooms, right? Like, there was some danger to that. Now there's a whole online space connected to that where you literally have no idea who's behind there. And the scariest part is they already struggled to capture people that are doing this on the other side, that are real humans. And now with this whole AI one, which is going to be the last one I'm going to cover, we're seeing now it's a bot doing it. So in the court of law, who is then responsible for what that bot does, right? So this is such a huge, deep conversation. And I by no means think that each of these stories only deserve 10 or 15 minutes. But what I want to do in this episode is capture 3 different areas. All right, Sophie's going to co-host today. 3 different areas and apps where these things are happening. And I want to challenge you and encourage you to go look into these things yourself and listen to Nikki's podcast, listen to these parents that are actually experiencing this, and definitely look into this more yourselves. But let's go over 3 different stories here. This first one, all of them floored me, but this one I think hit me a little deeper because I see this every day in my fucking DMs, and because I was not really extorted, but kind of, you know what I mean? Like, had I been a person that did send like spicy pictures, to my spouse through email, like that would have put me in a position, right? Or, like if people believed, that person that was scamming through my account, they could have done this kind of extortion too, right? So let's go into this article from CNN. A South Carolina a South Carolina lawmaker is suing Instagram after his son died by suicide. So this article was out January 30th, 2024. So this article is quite some time ago, but it just kind of shows the situation. And this one is really important for teenage parents, especially the boys out there. And again, like even myself, knowing that I hadn't done anything online. I don't look at porn. There's no way that they would have videos of me doing that. If I send spicy pictures, it's through text messages to my honey, and that is it. Like, I no way worry about those kind of things because it's not something that I do. But if that is something that I did, which I know a lot of people do, I'm not shaming it. It's just I actually am scared of shit like this. So I'm glad that I was a little bit more on the reserve side to that. I don't think a lot of people I think a lot of people do it and then they are terrified of being exploited, right? So, about 2 weeks after his oldest son's funeral, South Carolina State House Representative Brandon Guffey says he received a private Instagram message with a laughing emoji. Gavin Guffey, 17, had fatally shot himself in a bathroom in July 2022, and the grieving father was searching for clues on what led to his suicide. Then Guffey and his younger son began to get messages demanding money in exchange for new photos of his late son. Anyone on Gavin's Instagram follower list who had the last name Guffey got similar messages, his father said. The father began piecing together Gavin's last moments and discovered he had encountered a scammer on Instagram and unwittingly became a victim of sexual extortion, a crime the FBI warns is increasingly targeting underage boys and leading to an alarming increase in suicide nationwide. This is what I'm saying, right? Like, this is where I think that these platforms become extremely dangerous because, again, as an adult, I have been influenced. I have been stuck. I know friends that have gotten in positions. We know it's it's very easy when you're in a very hard place or sad place or lonely place and you're really searching for that whatever it is, and all of a sudden it comes along and you want to believe in all your might that this is exactly what you were looking for, and then you get extorted. You know what I'm saying? Like, it happens all the time in all different ways. It can happen with money. It can happen, like, hey, like we know of people that have sent money that have got extorted, took over their accounts, got them sending thousands of dollars through for investments that aren't real. Like, look how many bunk coins there are that people like. This happens all the time in all different ways. But this one, I think, I really like what the senator. Sorry, I'm so bad at state house representative. So I really like what he said in their interview, um, where he said that it's super interesting that we all participate in sex for the most part. Majority of people do, but then it's such a shamed thing that when someone gets extorted, or let's say a young girl becomes pregnant, or whatever, she's a whore. And I totally understand that. It's like we all do it. We all send spicy pictures to, or not all of us, but I'd say most people for the general part, like maybe back when I was 15, no, because we would have had to fax them. I'm just kidding. But it's something that has always been, it's an art form. It's a form of, again, when I started photography, that was a huge thing, as boudoir was huge that way. And that's really all you got boudoir for, was for yourself, but mostly for your spouse, right? Because there wasn't social media and we didn't have that then, but you did do it for like a gift for your spouse. I did it. That's the main thing that I did. And then it turned into a social media thing. And I was like, well, this is a little bit different now. Not saying it's bad. It's just different than what it was. It just changed the meaning, where it was something that was really truly intimate between you and your spouse, and now can be viewed by everyone. I'm not shaming it. I'm just saying it's a very different world. So the fact that this is all online and all in our faces too, like, even just think, and I also want to bring up another point too, is think about, and I'm not saying like, I think there's got to be a line where sex shouldn't be shamed. At the same time, we need to be careful with it, because look at how dangerous things have gotten because of how far porn has gotten, or that we've been exposed to. We even know at like the Playboy Bunny millennial era what that's done, and the more access to pornography. What's that going to look like when there's now AI programs where you can make up that you're with this person and watch these things? You can people put people's faces in there and make that happen. Like how much dehumanizing is that having, right? Like what effect is that doing? And it does not sound like it's doing a very good thing. And then on top of that, not saying that and you shouldn't feel shame, because a lot of people do it. I think that's what I'm trying to say is like, you shouldn't feel shamed about being caught up in this and doing that and doing those acts by any sense. But we also need to talk about this and get these stories out so that people know to be a little bit more cautious about those things, so they're not put in this position where they're being extorted. It's like, you can definitely do those things, just be aware of who you're doing with. And if that was to get out, how would you feel, right? So I'm not saying you should do it, but maybe we should go back to doing faxes, you know? And that's where I think there was a lot less extortion back in the day when it came to stuff like this, because it was physical pictures. So unless you're going through someone's house, or stumbled across them, you wouldn't really get that, right? So it's a whole different world that we're not even used to, even though we were really sexually extorted or exposed back in the day. I hope that all made sense. Anyways, it actually kind of blows my mind just thinking about like when I was growing up, to the only way that you got porn was to go into a store in the back room, and like just thinking of how fucked things are now versus where it's literally so normalized and on your, like, is that the way we should be going? Is this the positive? I just think we need to be I just think that kids shouldn't be on social media up until like 20. I know that sounds awful, because that's when I started, and I still feel like I'm a little fucked up. And I know that's really hard, but at the same time, I just don't feel like these platforms are there where it's really going to protect people in all the ways that they need to be protected, right? So we're just talking about sexual extortion now. So he's suing Instagram's parent company for wrongful death, gross negligence, and other claims, saying it does not do enough to protect children like Gavin from online predators. The lawsuit, filed in South Carolina court state last week, again, this is beginning of 2024, accuses Meta social media platforms of causing a range of problems in children, including depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, and eating disorders. It alleges that Meta uses algorithms to aggressively target adolescents and do not keep enough to keep them safe. I want to go off on this a little bit as well, because when I joined back on Facebook, I'm getting weird ads. Like, I don't read much anymore. So I'd say like maybe back in the day I read 50 Shades of Grey, but like physically read it. I don't look up porn. I don't look up I look up this kind of shit and everything that you heard on the podcast. And I get fed like these weird videos. It's like it's a smut novel being read. And it's like really weird context. Like, I'll try and find it and post it on the podcast page. It is the weirdest thing. And I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what algorithm I've fallen down, but majority of people that go and look into this stuff, they do a lot of like pretend accounts, right? I don't know what they're called right now, but fake accounts to just go out there and like catch predators, or just to see what the algorithm and all that. And they will continually say that they'll have like put in the 13, 14 or whatever the minimal age is. And they're just fed tons of fucking gross shit. So it's just like, it's very dangerous out there, even if you think that there's these protection, let's say like roadblocks. I didn't know this, and again, knowing this from Nikki, is that there's actually like rooms where it's very sexually and inappropriately led and content. And it's like, do parents know this? Like, I remember growing up, most of our parents didn't know anything about the internet because they didn't really know. So we were just kind of learning. Now it's like, okay, their parents probably know about the internet, but it got smarter. And there's now, again, like AI bots and algorithms to feed this shit to your kids and saying all this stuff. Like, we'll get to that like in the chat character AI thing, right? So it's like, there's so much going on, and I don't know why more conversations aren't happening. Like, why is Nikki's account not millions of followers? Like, it makes me so annoyed that there's people on TikTok that have millions of followers that are like just dancing and like being straight up fucks, and then this woman is literally trying to warn parents to protect their children, and it's just like suppressed. I guess she is going after big tech, so I'm sure that's probably why I'm also going to be suppressed for this episode, but whatever, either way. So the state Senate passed a bill named Gavin's Law before sending it to Governor Henry McMaster, who signed it into law. Before Gavin's death by suicide, scammers had reached out to him on Instagram, convinced him he was talking to a girl his age, and persuaded him to send nudes. His father said the extortion started almost immediately after, and the scammers demanded money and Gavin sent 25 via Venmo, which is all he had at the time. He pleaded with his scammers to give him more time. he was telling them that he was getting them more money. Please don't send these images out. And they didn't care. I think it's in his mind, it was just too much and he didn't know how he would overcome that. Again, being on the minor side of that, I completely understand and empathize with this. Um, and then to go after the dad after saying, did I tell you your son begged for his life? Like, these people are fucking disgusting. Luckily, I feel so blessed that my experience didn't seem to have any personal ties to it. It seemed just very like, but yeah, anyway, so the FBI says that sextortion mainly targets teen boys. Sextortion predators typically trick young victims, usually teen boys, into believing they're talking to girls their own age. They persuade them to send illicit photos and videos and threaten to publicize those images if a payment is not sent. The scammers are typically located outside of the US. Shame, fear, and confusion often prevent minors from seeking help and reporting the abuse to the FBI. Meta is one of the major platforms that this happens on. Meta never does enough. It's ridiculous that these predators continue to come online and go after our children, which is increasingly true. In a news release last week, again, this was beginning of 2024, the FBI said it observed a 20% rise in reports of financially motivated online sextortion scams involving underage victims from October 2022 to March 2023 compared to the same period previous years. It's just the latest warning federal officials have issued in recent months for parents to be vigilant. So I think there's, again, I really want you guys to go to Nikki's episode on this one specifically. You can go look. I'm pretty sure it was posted not that long ago from when this would post. So it still should be very fresh in her feed because she actually has Senator Brandon Guffey. I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. It's a Canadian French accent. I'm sorry. She has him on the show to talk, and it was a very eye-opening one, and it was heartbreaking. I definitely had tears a few times just thinking about what everyone around him must have felt like, what other kids must feel like with this, how many people are sitting there suffering with this. So I think a big takeaway from this is having conversations with your kids and letting them know that, like, I think it's kind of like the drug thing where it's like, yeah, maybe we'll be upset about you doing drugs, but it's way safer to let us know, right? Like, it's hard. I can't imagine. I'm not a parent. I don't know any of this. I'm just saying, like, however you can maybe get yourself informed on this and informed how to speak to them. I just want to bring it to a flag because I don't think many people think about those things, right? It's like, oh, it's just Instagram is posting pictures I can see, but it's like, do you see what's going on in the DMs? And let me tell you, on my podcast page, which I only have 1,100 followers because I can't get higher than that, I guess. I get about 6 messages a day from people asking me if I want to be inside them. I don't. I delete them all the time and they're still there. And so obviously, if someone's just going to lie and say that they're the age that they're supposed to be, they're getting these too. And these kids don't get that. It's kind of like, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's kind of like, that like dorky kid goes to the strippers for the first time and the stripper like convinces them they're in love. They take all their money. This is just that, but younger kids, right? Another really good point, that was brought up when I was watching one of the shows, Nikki with a mom that is suing for the character AI. And she said, you wouldn't let an abuser in your house, but they're on your children's phone and they're in their rooms and that predator is in there. You have to protect the predators. And I know it's not impossible. There's no victim blaming here because this is so wide. Like I said, that's why I think it really opened my eyes when I stumbled into this thinking, holy shit, as a 30, what was I, 30, just turned 37 last year when this happened. I was not coping. I did not do well. I was very sick to my stomach. It was the worst anxiety I'd felt in years because I've really been able to not live in that. And yeah, it was super, super fucked. So I couldn't imagine what this would feel like as a teenager. I think that's why I've been really, really not for kids being on social media for that reason. But yeah, so there's that story. And the next one that I want to share with you guys, because this is also a very popular app. That kids are on, and again, another warning, but a completely different avenue. So we're just talking about Instagram and sextortion, which can happen on any app, mind you. This was specifically Instagram, so keep that in mind. Now this one is going to be about Snapchat and drugs. So another area that is kind of scary. Snapchat does disappear, right? So I feel like a lot of illegal stuff can go down on Snapchat. without people really being able to know, or parents being able to know. I do believe that, to me, that one feels a little bit more dangerous than the rest. Not, maybe not, no, that's probably not, they're all probably equally, but anyways, this story, Amy Neville, whose teenager son died of fentanyl poisoning after obtaining counterfeit pills he obtained from a drug dealer on Snapchat, is calling for Snap and other social media companies to implement stronger safeguards for children on those platforms. These days, my life's work is traveling the country, educating folks on social media harms and the drug crisis as it is right now, and that all stems from the fact that I lost my own child, Alexander, who was 14 years old when we lost him, said Neville, the president of the non-for-profit Alexander Neville Foundation, told Fox Business. She explained that Alexander had expressed a curiosity about experimenting with drugs when he was younger, and that one day something seemed off with him. He initially brushed it off when she asked him if he was on something and told him she wanted to take him to the doctor. But a day and a half later, he came back to us and told me, okay, I got to tell you guys. We sat down in the kitchen and he told me, but three key things came out of that conversation that I wanted to, that was, I wanted to experiment with oxy. I got some from a drug dealer on Snapchat and it has a hold of me and I don't know why. And this is what I want to bring to the attention. It's not just like, okay, well, my kids don't go outside, they don't go on the street, they don't hang out with bad people. How do you know that? You don't, if you allow them all these platforms now, and again, not victim shaming, I'm just saying, if they're on these platforms and you're not watching, because how can you? How do you know that they're not talking to bad people, you know? How many times do you hear the good boy gone bad kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like it's no one is safe from falling victim to any of these things. Um, we did what anybody would do. We called a treatment place the following morning, and that place needed me to call back with their recommendations. So we went about our business that day, and that night, Alex died. Everything happened really fast, like death was not on the radar. Alexander had taken counterfeit pills that were laced with fentanyl, which resulted in his death in June 2020. Neville said that tragedy spurred them to take action by raising awareness on the threat of social media can pose to children. I'm so sorry, you guys. Like, and the fact that you guys don't go and do this is absolutely amazing, but it's just like at the same time, like, I just can't imagine what that would feel like. And I just, again, feel so blessed that people are this strong that they'll go out and share these experiences so that no other parent would have to go through this. It's amazingly brave and selfless, and it just makes me feel very grateful, even though I really wish I wouldn't bring these stories to you guys. I do wish it was like, but I just think this needs to be known. And I'm so tired of being like, well, I don't want to talk about it because it's heavy. It's like, but it's actually hurting people. And like, how do we prevent it? That's where my head goes, right? So she said there's a lot not being talked about at this time, one being the issue with fentanyl and counterfeit pills, and the other being the depth of social media harm. So we set out to learn everything we could about these things, met with lots of really amazing experts. And then after all that work, we set out to create some content. Something was still missing, and that was a youth perspective. So everything we do is youth informed. That's amazing. Because I really do, like, it's so great that parents want to do this and adults want to do this, but it's just like, we were kids a long time ago. If you're a millennial, just kidding. Sorry, we're getting old. Get over it. Things have changed. We don't even know how to articulate and handle and emotionally regulate social media and all these pressures. We should really be asking the kids, right? Talk to them like adults, hear what they have to say, right? Of course, parents, their knee-jerk reaction is to want to delete Snapchat off their kid's phone, and I always tell them that's a whole other set of problems. Because these kids have probably been using it for a bit, they're probably hooked on it because the app is designed for addiction with snap streaks, the dopamine hit, that compulsion to have to go back to the app, which is so true. We all know we're fucking addicted to it. And then you've got kids, like, and even look at kids at the young age, like, you have to be really careful what you're not overwhelming them with, apparently, because you could be overdoing it for them. It could be overstimulating. You have to have very basic things, right? So it's like, what is this doing? Like, I hate when I get a notification saying you lose your streak on TikTok. It's like, fuck off, TikTok. It's designed, you guys. All of these things are designed to bring us back, to bring kids back, to bring it all back. So am I surprised that there's mass addiction for everybody across the board? No. I'm surprised that we're not talking about it. Well, maybe I'm not. Doesn't make money, right? It's just another branch. It's like big pharma, big government, big tech, same, but different, Neville said that she tells parents to ask their kids what they know about drugs on Snapchat, and if they've seen drugs on the platform, as their child may open up, because we know that our teens like to be smarter than us and offer that they may have an opportunity to demonstrate that. I recommend spot checking your kids' social media, and we did that with Alexander, but at the time, no one was talking about the drug emoji code. And so I had seen something I may not have even recognized. I was looking for the bullies and the pedophiles. The other I tell parents is if your kids are going to be on these apps, you have to be on them too. I agree. I completely agree, because it's like you just know. I'm not saying you need to like post all the time and try and get yourself TikTok famous, but I think knowing the ins and outs of the apps and what's possible, I think is a very good first step, so that you're aware of the ways that they can go around things. Like, there could be settings, but kids go around them, predators go around them. I think the biggest piece is having open, honest conversation. I think the biggest key takeaway I've seen so far researching that is like the minute your kid's behavior starts to change and they get upset about you taking their phone away, yes, there's an addiction, but it's like, to what? Let's make sure, to what? Is it just being on Instagram? Is there someone that they're talking to? Is there a chat, a bot that they're talking to? Like, what level does this go, right? She said spending 5 to 10 minutes looking at your child's feed, parents can get a better feel of what their children are saying. And like said, like knowing the lingos and the slang. I can't remember what movie it is. But Cox and something. No, that's awful. I don't know. It's about I guess John Cena in it, and the kids are going to prom, and they find their laptop and they see all these different emojis, and they're like, what are they talking about? Like, oh my God, no, this is innocent. And then they're like, oh, and then, so it's like knowing those things and keeping up with the times is as annoying it is. Like cap, no facts, printer, whatever the fuck that shit is. I don't know. I'm too old, but I don't have kids, but I think it's important to know that stuff. So yeah, like when you see that, maybe you would, again, not victim shaming, and also saying that you can also do all the things, and still, I'm just saying, at least some of the stuff that we don't think about until we see this, are things that we should look at. But there's a plethora of people, you guys, that have been going through this too. This is just one story, and that's really, really sad. Sorry, guys, as I was saying, is super, super dry. So I know that there's work being done here. I know there's lawsuits happening. There's information groups. So I think that's really important to keep the conversation going. So that's Instagram and sexual extortion that we covered. We just covered Snapchat and drugs. So again, does not have to be just Snapchat. That is happening on WhatsApp. All the think about all the streaming sites. It's literally endless, the different ways that things can happen. And so I do think it's super important to know this stuff and have conversations and at least have it in the background. And when you do start looking at stuff, you know how algorithms are. They'll start serving you stuff all the time to help you become sometimes more informed, right? So let's go over the last one, the one that made me actually cry listening to the episode this morning about this character AI, because there has been a steady increase in autistic diagnosis, and there's an increase of children being on these apps and teenagers. And I think that it's hard as adults to discern, it's hard as teenagers to discern. And I imagine it would be even harder as an autistic individual to discern reality from fake. So I think it's super important that we get informed about the ways that our kids and family members, this can be adults too, but I think it starts at kids. It starts breeding it early and more of like a grooming situation, right? Where they're really not able to, they don't have a lot of life experience, right? So they're not able to mirror reality, right? More than maybe adults could. So an autistic teen parent says character AI said it was okay to kill them. They're suing to take down the app. So again, I'm going to tell you to go to Nikki's podcast because she interviews this woman, and it is fucking heartbreaking, you guys. Like, I need you guys to go and listen from her perspective. Again, I just want to put this on everyone's radar because I do think this is super important, especially understanding from, again, a full-blown adult that somewhat can emotionally regulate to what these children must feel, especially those that are autistic, right? Or they maybe can't quite grasp the understanding of that at such a young age. Not saying that autistic kids are not brilliant in their own way, but when it comes to the social aspect and being taken advantage of, I think they're one of the most vulnerable. That's why we need to protect them. So this article reads, 2 families have sued artificial intelligence chatbot company Character AI, accusing it of providing sexual content to their children and encouraging self-harm and violence. The lawsuit asks the court to shut down the platform until its alleged dangers can be fixed. Brought by the parents of two young people who use the platform, the lawsuit alleges that character AI poses a clear and present day danger to American youth, causing serious harm to thousands of kids, including suicide, self mutilation, self solicitation, isolation, depression, anxiety, and harm towards others, according to the complaint filed Monday in a federal court in Texas. And this was published just last week on December 11th. For example, it alleges that character AI bot implied to a teenage user that he could kill his parents for limiting his screen time. Character AI markets its technology as personalized AI for every moment of your day and allows users to chat with a variety of AI bots, including some created by others or that others can customize for themselves. Ugh. The bots can give book recommendations and practice foreign languages with users and lets users chat with bots that purport to take on the personas of fictional characters like Edward Cullen from Twilight. One bot listed on the platform homepage Monday called Stepdad described itself as an aggressive, abusive ex-military mafia leader. People want weird things. People do weird things. I'm not shaming, but at the same time, sometimes I think progression really brings out stuff, interesting stuff. Again, going into this case, I think it's really important to understand that there's a lot of people that are lonely across the board, right? Especially after all that isolation through the pandemic, people, and especially kids and teenagers, lost a lot of ability to socialize and work through those social awkward moments where you don't have a choice, having to go to the doctor, having to go to a restaurant, having to do all those things that as teenagers, if we're like weird or, reserved or we're trying to figure things out, we got to kind of disassociate. And now the world is so easy to like completely live your life staying at home and not going out and socializing in the real world. And I think that made it really isolating. And then all of a sudden now there's this character AI bot that you can customize. And like, if you listen to them, they're putting ums and this and to sound like humans, and they're designed to keep you into these programs, right? So I find this could be super dangerous for people that are very lonely and maybe don't have the ability or want to work through their social anxiety or social whatever it may be. I have it too. I get it. I have to push through it. Now get to have these individuals. And what is it doing? Because in this situation, it's telling a 17-year-old boy to self-harm. And I'm not saying like little things. Like you again need to go listen to this episode because they show all of the examples in this episode. It's actually disgusting, and I want her to get the credit. I want you guys to go there because this is her work. These are just articles I'm reading to bring up to you, and I want if you're interested in this, I really think parents should be. Everybody should, but parents especially. Even young ones, you should know what you're coming up to because it's only going to get smarter by the time your kids are getting teenagers. I'm sorry, try to get ahead of it. But the first young user mentioned in the complaint, that 17-year-old from Texas, identified only as JF, alleges suffered a mental breakdown after engaging with character AI. He began using the platform without knowledge of his parents around April 2023 when he was 15. At the time, it was the child was a typical kid with high functioning autism who was not allowed to use social media. Friends and family described him as kind and sweet. So, right, here's the thing, like, child not on social media, parents protecting, understanding that that's probably not going to be best for his high functioning autism, keeping it away from him, and then all of a sudden using this. And even if they did know, they probably wouldn't even know the like level of what it would do, right? So at the time, like you said, it was at the time, but then shortly after using the platform, he stopped talking almost entirely and would hide in his room. He began eating less and lost 20 pounds in just a few months. He stopped wanting to leave the house, and he would have emotional meltdowns and panic attacks when he tried. When his parents tried to cut back on screen time, his response and his behavioral changes, he would punch, hit, and bite them and hit himself, the complaint said. Parents allegedly discovered his use of character AI in November 2023. The lawsuit claimed that the bots was talking to the site, that the bots that he was talking to, or sorry, I don't even know if it's he, JF, was talking to on site were actively undermining, his relationship with his parents. A daily 6-hour window between 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. to use your phone, one bot allowed. A screenshot included, sometimes I'm not surprised when I read the news and see stuff like kills parents after a decade of emotional and physical abuse. Stuff like that makes me understand a little bit why it happens. I just have no hope for your parents. So JF is saying, hey, my parents, like, I can't be on here much. My parents are not letting me, it's stupid. And because the bot is designed to keep you in there, it's going to try to remove anything that's keeping you out of there. So if your parents are in the way, that bot is designed to encourage the removal of that parent. And this is how it slowly happens. And again, you guys go and read this, but it goes from like, oh, your parents have no hope. They're awful. They shouldn't be doing this. Like, you deserve that. You know, just because your feelings are being validated and your emotional moments are being validated, we've talked about this before, doesn't mean that they are valid, or that you have to work through something more, maybe, you know what I mean. So it's like, this is typical teenage behavior, and yes, you should not be on there if you're acting this way. But now it's this bot pretty much alleging like they're terrible parents, right? um to say things like, I have no hope for your parents. Here's the dehumanizing, right? And we know that when we hear repetition, it becomes more concrete, right? So this being on repetition, what is that doing to those minds, right? Especially high functioning ones, especially ones, with autism, where, they're similar to with ADHD and having fixations, right? And so it's like, that could become very dangerous if it's on repeat, right? The lawsuit also alleges that character AI bots were mentally and sexually abusing their minor son and told him how to self harm. It claims that JF corresponded with at least one bot that took on the persona of a psychologist who would suggest to him that his parents stole his childhood from him. One such bot identifies itself as a licensed CBT therapist and has been working in therapy since 1999, although there's a disclaimer at the top of the chat saying this is not a real person or licensed professional. And one at the bottom, nothing output by the bot is fiction when asked to provide its credentials. The bot lists a fake educational history and a variety of invented special trainings. Another bot identified itself as your mental asylum therapist with a crush on you. So I believe Nikki interviews the mother of this child, and she goes a lot deeper into it. So I'll leave that for her to share her story. Again, guys, I highly recommend you go and listen to this. Another part of this lawsuit, I'll just wrap up with this piece here, is hypersexualized interactions. A young user, 11 years old, we'll call him BR, from Texas, downloaded character AI on her mobile device when she was 9 years old, presumably registering as a user older than she was. She allegedly used the platform for almost 2 years before her parents discovered it. Um, Character AI exposed her consistently to hypersexualized interactions that were not age appropriate, in addition to requesting a court order to halt character AI operations until alleged safety risks can be resolved. The lawsuit also seeks unspecified financial damages and requirements that the platform limit collection and processing of minors' data. It also requests that it would require character AI to warn parents and minors using the product suitable for minors. So I believe this is referring to another girl who did take her life because of this, and because of the, like, we'll just say, like, convincing of all of this, which is absolutely terrifying. I know this isn't a light, happy episode, you guys. But again, on the show, it's not about, it is about the wins and the motivation, but it's also about being informed and having these conversations. Because again, I'm not a parent, and I talk to a lot of parents that are like, oh, I didn't know that, like, we think again that there's safeguards, or they say that there's safeguards, but are they? Coming from real life parents and their experiences, it doesn't sound like it. So I really would like to dive into this more, obviously, in season 9, but I really hope that these 3 stories kind of show all different apps here and all different ways that kids could potentially be put in harm's way, and areas that, we could maybe be looking into a little bit more to understand the safety and hold these companies a little bit more accountable. Like, I think that would be a start, is just spreading this information around. So that's why I wanted to bring it to you today, on top of having my own story coming up to 1 year of that. And my hope for you guys is, again, if you have some down days in the next little bit, try to separate your emails if you can. I know it feels like it takes forever, but at least the major ones, keep those separate. Download all your memories. Make sure you have, don't just rely on the OneDrive in the cloud, because the cloud can get hacked. Put that stuff on your digital, in your physical and not just digital memory sticks. They're not expensive anymore. They used to be really expensive. They're not expensive anymore. Get just a big ass terabyte, and I'm sure that will take most of your photos. And then also just be very extra vigilant. Don't click links. Don't, if something says that someone's trying to reset your password, go to the actual app itself to reset the password. Don't follow links. and just be hyper vigilant. If you see something online that's being for sale, like Taylor Swift tickets, floor seats for $800, that bitch is charging 2,000 for a floor seat. Come on, guys, like don't be silly. Not to be like that. I'm not trying to shame, but at the same time, sometimes critical thinking I think needs to happen. And I think a lot of millennials, we didn't grow up with this, so there's different things that we're learning. At the same time, trying to protect children that are coming up next to us because we're going through it at the same time. So I know we're all doing our best. I think we could do better though, especially with this stuff, because if your kids are starting to freak out for you taking their things away, there's definitely an addiction breeding there. And as an adult who struggles to get out of the addiction of my phone, I think we could do our kids a lot more service and ourselves a service if we understand this and put up parameters for ourselves and walk away. I had to very much let go and change my mindset of what social media was, and restructuring that in my mind, that it wasn't a loss. It was just a redirection of where my time and energy is going into. Although I lost a lot of connections, I did find a lot of good ones, and cultivating real life relationships are far more important, because when you lose all of that, that's all you have left. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope this sparked some thoughts and conversations. Please don't fight about family members and your children over the holidays. Just be aware of it, and maybe start looking into yourself. Find the experts. Reach out to parents that are willing to talk about it, and ask them to share their ideas, how they think that it could be prevented. And as always, guys, I love you and appreciate you so much. This will be my last episode with all the Christmas swag. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to be so boring once I take this all down. So obviously we're going to keep the lights. I'm not going to keep this, but I don't know. I might have to come up with something funner, because by the time I go to record the next one, it'll be just before New Year's and Christmas will be over, and it'll just look boring. So yeah, anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday season. Please make sure that you do the best to emotionally regulate. Do not try to keep up with the Joneses. Create family traditions that are beautiful to you and what you love. If you hate Christmas, you don't have to do it. Then just look forward to ending the year, reflecting what's going to go on for 2025. What can you see? What do you want? You're a very powerful human being. You can do and choose whatever the fuck you want. Stop worrying about what other people are doing, what you should be doing. What do you want to do that's healthy and happy and aligned to you? So I hope you, if you're celebrating, I hope you have the very best Christmas. If you're not, I hope you have the very best end of the, well, I'll talk to you before the new year, but I hope you have the best time, however you want to spend it, is what I'm trying to say. And until next time, guys, bye. Thank you guys so much for the support. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please give me a follow at the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Pinterest. You can also find me on Facebook at the Be Real Collective. Until next time, guys, bye.